So what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and reconcile our bank, just as a little bit of a check to where we are. You'll see right now we have 4 outstanding sales invoices, and we have 29 outstanding purchase invoices, and as well as that we have a list of transactions that we're looking to reconcile right now, and that's all of these guys. So you see all of these are unreconciled, and the way that we're going to reconcile them is go over to our reconcile tab. So our job is to tie in all of these bank payments and all of these bank receipts to all of these outstanding invoices. Now the way that Xero does this is it recognises that if a payment matches an invoice, it will give you a prompt to say, is this a payment for this invoice? Now, more often than not, the answer is going to be yes, but you do have to make sure that this is the case and sense check that in the first instance. So I'm going to go ahead and just approve them all. So, the first thing I'll do is go ahead and tick off the ones that you know to be right. So there's no need to do it all in order. You can literally just go through and essentially cut down your list of ones that you want to reconcile, because all the information is on there already and we know that the information is correct due to our statement balance, so we can just go ahead and do it. Now you'll note earlier I did mispost one invoice, so now we're going to see eventually how we're going to deal with that as well. So as I'm verifying these, I'm just giving it a quick spot check just to make sure that it is the right item. Obviously I've made all of these up, so I do know that they're right, but just make sure that you're allocating the right payment to the right invoice. For example, telephone, make sure that this payment is relating to this invoice and not a outstanding invoice from a prior month, for example. And what this is doing is it's making all of them invoices that were outstanding earlier, which are these. It's basically cutting down this list. So you'll see now we don't have as many outstanding. Some of them have already been allocated, and that's it. That's perfect. That's what we're looking for. So if I go ahead and I'm just going to tick all these because I know that they're right. I've already verified that before this. But as I say, do make sure you have the attention to detail. So here, let's see what's going on. So now it's prompting me saying 16th of January 2020, 22nd of January 2020. So there's 2 other possible matches. I've possibly messed up and allocated the same amount payment to the wrong one, so we'll see. And in this case, that hasn't happened. It's just 16th of January. So thankfully Xero picked that up for me, but at the end of the day, it wouldn't have mattered too much as long as all of them are paid in full. But you should always allocate it to the right one where you can help it. So here, 18th of Jan, and Xero is generally quite good at telling you whether it's right or wrong. Notice there, I just reconciled a sales invoice compared to a purchase invoice. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of all of these things. So the profit and loss has already been recorded because when we brought in the invoice, and now we're just controlling the ledgers essentially. But it is very simple. So that's all the ones almost that are possible to match. And now you'll see that there are a few things still outstanding. And now we have to go over to our bills. Sorry, a few payments that we still need to allocate and a few receipts. So now if we go over to our bills and give it a refresh, we'll see this list should be way down in terms of awaiting payment. So if we want to get rid of all that busyness, we'll have a look at these 4 and have a look at these and see which ones tie in. Now, for a payment, I'd always expect an outstanding invoice, so I need to ask myself, why can't I find these? Or why wasn't it from themselves in there in the first instance? So this one, 310, I know that's not tying in because that's actually an error here. So I did that intentionally earlier to highlight how to deal with that. So let's deal with this one first. So we know that we want to match it to Woodshop Limited. It's a wood purchase on the 8th of January 2020, I can cross-reference it to the invoice if I would like, but I know that that is meant to be this, and the problem is there's a typo on the end here, so I need to go ahead and fix that. So I'm going to go to my bills, which are accessed through business, bills to pay, and then awaiting payment, and then I'm going to go into the one that's got the error in it. So just click anywhere along this line and it will take you to this invoice. Now from here you'll want to edit it. Now the times where you need to be conscious of this is if this invoice has already been included on a VAT return that's been submitted, you're going to need to credit off the invoice and then re-raise the invoice in order to get it right. Otherwise, Xero's not going to like it and it's not going to go through the VAT return in the correct way, or at least a clean way. So I want to change my total to 310, and same again here or here, and then that's now corrected, so I can update this. All the other information stays the same. And now if I refresh this tab over here as well, when this one's updated, still loading. Cut this bit out in post edit.
Yeah.
So,
What meaning? But no.
yeah, you could, to be fair.
10,000 years later.
Okay. Sweet. So now that this is updated, we should be able to match it in the bank rec. And as well as that, that's I'm not actually sure why they weren't available to match in the first instance, but we can now match all of them. All of these ones here. There's one possible other match here. So I'm just going to make sure it's the right one. We'll tick it to that. And then we can reconcile down here. So now what we're left with is if we have a look at our outstanding bills again, is one awaiting payment, and that's one raised on the 22nd, and I've actually not created a bank payment for that, so that's correct. So if we look on our reports now for bills to pay or whatever, you'll be able to see this is a legitimate outstanding amount which you need to pay, which is good, and that's what you expect to see, and that proves that we've done our bank rec so far correctly. Likewise, if we do the same thing with our sales invoices, all of these have been paid apart from the last one, which we completely expect because it was raised on the 31st of January and it will get paid just after. So again, awaiting payment, and these will be our trade debtors and our trade creditors, or aged payables and aged receivables in Xero language. So now you'll see that there's some items that don't have invoices for, and that's completely fine. You don't expect an invoice on every single payment. So if you do that, if that's the case, rather than matching, you will want to create, which seems to have just disappeared. So go over to create, and then who? Bank charges, I don't know. It's definitely not Robert. Let's go HSBC, just for the sake of it. Add that as a new contact, and now whenever there's any bank charges, we'll just pop that to HSBC. Here you can drop down and you have all of the codes. So the most appropriate one for me is bank fees, because that's what these are, just bank charges. And then from here, you can put in a bit of detail if you want to, but there's no need, and from there you can just allocate that right. And same again, HSBC. This is your bank interest, which is, I'm not sure what the code is off the top of my head, but it's an income code. So we'll have a look over there. Assets, liabilities, equity, revenue, right at the bottom, and interest income. That's what it is. And now these are two balance sheet items. These are loan accounts. The director put in £10,000 into the bank account at the start of the month when he started the business, and he took 5,000 out. So both of these are going to the director's loan account. I don't have a name for him, I'm afraid, so I'm just going to call him director. And exactly the same logic, they're going to go to your director's loan account. And you can actually search in there as well, which is quite a lot easier. So director's loan account, director's loan account. And then if we match all of them, our balance in Xero now matches our statement balance. And we've done everything we need to do. So now, in theory, all of these books are complete, up to date. So some things to check at the end is you want to check your statement balance and make sure that's correct. So the way to do that would be to just go into your from your bank accounts, click into the specific bank that you want, or maybe even manage account. You can probably get there as well. There's normally about 5 or 6 ways to get to the same place. And then reconciliation report, and then you'll want to put in the date of which you are reconciling up until, and then if that's all that you see and there's no difference, you've done your job right and everything's correct. Now, some other things that you'll want to check is if you go into reports, you will see aged receivable summary or detail, and then aged payable summary or detail. Now, you want to again make sure that your dates are set correct, because it will always default to today's date. So we're doing up to the end of January. That's when we've reconciled our bank and invoices up until. And if we update that, that's still loading, but we'll have a look at this one. We've got Leslie Grace, she owes us £2,000 still, which we know is correct because that was raised at the end of the month and it was probably going to be paid just after. You'd hope so anyway. And then the same logic with the payables. We know that we have one outstanding payment that we haven't made yet, and that was for an invoice raised right at the end of the month. So as time goes on, you really want to be paying attention to what's going into these columns here, because if I run this report, let's just say in the middle of May, this will be an older column item. So now it's been outstanding for 3 months, and we'll have to ask ourselves, is that still outstanding? And if it's not still outstanding and you don't need to make that payment still, why is it on our ledger? You know, you've probably misallocated a payment or put a payment directly to the profit and loss rather than allocating it to this invoice. So that's why it's important to do these checks throughout, and just make sure that everything's kept on top of, because it's a lot easier to edit things and correct things as you're going along in the first instance compared to correcting them down the line, especially if they've been included in VAT returns, and you need to correct the VAT returns as well.